Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the committee as well as this opportunity to help my students and I share our work in the lab. And also thank you for those of you showing up, especially during this time of the year. Close to the final week, and again, thank you one more time for those of the double supports. You may already took part of this today's talk from February Central States ACSM. So today I will first talk about primary ACL injury, anterior cruciate ligament. And final week is approaching. Everyone is overwhelmed. So then I thought, let's watch some videos, make it fun, and we don't have to all dig into biomechanics numbers. So then we will also talk about some trunk perturbation stuffs. I will spend about 20 minutes, so I promise I won't go long. So yep. So let's see. This is a heartbreaking video. And from Mahomes. It happens last season, and I'm not a social media guy at all. I barely share a post, as you could tell from how many likes I get. So then part of the reason I enjoyed watching those games is really about I want to see if I will be able to guess the injury event right, and specifically ACL injury. And I have been training on this for years, talking about video analysis, what is the risk factor for ACL injury. And when I saw this, this is an ACL injury. So I thought okay, I have to share this post. And it ended up with education worth it. My hypothesis was supported, and he did have a very textbook ACL injury maneuver. And this is also what I have been looked at, which is the role of trunk perturbation. So what does that mean? We will talk about all those details later on. Another player comes to the injured player before the injury happened or at the estimated time. And then the injured player placed the foot very forward and with an extended knee outside of the body, and the trunk was leaning to the injured side as well. All those information, we will look at it with details. All right, so now let's see. If we want to do some games next time when you watch games, and then look at if I will be able to tell if an ACL injury happening, we first want to make sure we understand what is ACL injury maneuvers or what is a mechanism. So here are three components or categories. So ACL injury has been identified as categorized as direct contact, which means someone running into your knee. So that's not always the case. It's actually barely happened. So then most of the time it happens as indirect contact and non-contact. So what does that mean? So someone may contact with you in addition to the injured part. So that could be your ankle, that could be your trunk. Or no one contact with you. You're good and you landed and you hurt yourself. This is important because it really makes the injury prevention possible. Otherwise, if you're thinking about direct contact, how will you be able to predict or prevent? It's gonna be don't contact with me, I'm good, leave me alone. So this is not the case for ACL injury. And previously, most of the studies are looking at the non-contact. So for our study, one of my research trajectory, primary focus, is really looking into the indirect contact. So all right, so we knew the maneuver, and now let's see, what are some tasks when ACL injuries are happening? So to look at those videos, what we could tell is first, 10 to 70% of ACL injury happening when people are trying to change direction. That means there are follow-up motion, and I'm trying to cutting to the left or to the right, not to maintain in the straight line. And then also landing is a significant component. Most of the time, people are landed with their one leg, which is the injured one. And deceleration is another common maneuver, which means although you're going straight, you're trying to stop yourself, and then you hurt yourself. So those are some most common injury maneuvers happen when ACL injury occurs. All right. So now we got all those knowledge. Then we think about why do I care about trunk perturbation, or where does this trunk perturbation ideas comes to play. So non-contact ACL injury have been well established in the last 2 decades. But if you look at the epidemiology studies, the ACL injury risk did not significantly decrease. Actually, for those young athletes, it's increased. So then what are the missing pieces here? So people are talking about today, games are more and more competitive. And then what else? So then we thought nobody really looked at indirect contact, which could be some contact happening before ACL injury or at the estimate time. Then we did some narrative review to look at the ACL injury video analysis. We found out that more than 80% of those contact is happening around your trunk region, about your arms, about your hips, so that also both are counted. And most importantly, if you looked at the meta-analysis from epidemiology study, a sport has a contact nature, has more than 3 to 5 times injury risk, higher injury risk compared to the limited contact sports and non-contact sports. So for sports like contact nature, that could be like football, basketball, and then for some limited contact, that could be more like volleyball. And then non-contact sports, that could be even, maybe pickleball, that could be one. So then we thought, all right, if contact is really important and perturbation is important, when you think about perturbation, I always see maybe like contact and plus unanticipated. You don't know, you do not expect it. So those are why we bring my attention to look at the trunk perturbation part. All right, so if that's the case, we want to look at the trunk, what is happening when ACL injury happening, or what is the role of the trunk. So then, as a biomechanics, we are coming from research like, design the brain, and you are thinking about, is there rationale underneath of it? And there must be some connections in between. So then we looked at it and thought, why do we care about trunk? Why does trunk will be able to affect your knee? So it's kind of like far away. So then first, if you are thinking about your body weight, so there are studies to look at different parts of your body, how heavy they are relatively to your overall body mass. Your trunk region is actually accounted for more than half or around half. So that means if you're moving your trunk a little bit, you will significantly challenging your balance or helping you improve your maybe athletic performance. By seeing that, or more like a biomechanical term, that will be you're adjusting your whole body center of mass location. So then that is one of the reasons. So that means if I'm leaning my trunk to my left side and I'm leaning my weight to my left leg like now, so then my left leg is experiencing much more loading compared to the other one. So that is one of the reasons which is really touched on the forces and the weight. And the other one we thought about is you think about how our joints are built or how our muscles are attached to it. So then the muscle at our knee joint or most of other joints, they're all most of them are bad jointly. So they also attached or affect your movement of your hip. And then when you're moving your trunk, most of the time it's also affected the pelvic tilt, which means you're moving together, you're moving as a kinetic chain, it's a sequence. So then we thought, all right, so that are some background information. There are resources or evidence to support us to really dig into this. So what would we start for and how should we start? So first, we look at ACL video analysis. This is an important approach to help us understand the injury risk as well as injury mechanisms, not only ACL, but it could also be maybe lateral ankle sprain, Achilles tendon, tibial Achilles tendon. So those, what they are doing or what does the research do is they go back to all those videos, look at what is happening when ACL injury or injury happening, what are the environment, what does people doing. So first, I want to look at, to start from sagittal plane. For those of you may not familiar with exercise science, sagittal plane means forward, backwards, this movement direction. We commonly start with this direction just because it's just the most common happen in our human movement. I'm approaching you, I'm walking towards you, so that is kind of the movement plan. So to look at this, researchers has been found, if we look at those red arrows showing here, when ACL injury happens, none of those injured players are being a flexed trunk position. They are all either extended their trunk or having a limited trunk flexion. And the other study, which is showing up here, they did a little bit more from digitizing those video, and they found there is a greater distance between where you're placing your foot and relatively to the rest of your body. So that means when ACL injury happened, you are having your foot placed very forward. That is not good. And then we read those, but those are second-hand evidence. It's from the video analysis. There is no research design. So then I thought, could we do some study to have a laboratory environment to look at if that's true, how does that affect your ACL loading variables? So for this study, what did we do is to look at the effect of external trunk perturbation location as well as direction, which is being pulled forward, being pulled backward, with versus without, on those biomechanical variables associated with ACL loading. So during this study, what did we do is we have the participant, this is Kareem, and he was jumping and focusing on the ball jump with his maximum height. And he didn't know if he will be pulled or not. Although he knows the possible location, it will be either forward or backwards. It's a double leg jump, double leg landing, and the weight is about 10 pounds, which is nothing for him. He's a very good long jumper. So those are just the 4 conditions showing up. And we will talk about a little bit about the results. But in general, what has been found is when the subject is being pulled back, we see that there is a limited trunk flexion angle, an increased knee abduction angle, which means greater knee in position, and a limited knee flexion angle, that means more extended knee. And those knee extension and abduction moments, that means loading in the different directions, are increased as well, which is associated with greater ACL injury risk. So that means the results are consistent with those video analyses. If we are looking at it the other way, if people being pulled forward, you are leaning your trunk, flexing your trunk, you also see the opposite effect, which means you decreased your ACL loading and you had a lower risk of ACL injury by doing that. So that has been found to be consistent with between the laboratory testing and video analysis. So sagittal plane seems like, okay, great, we got this. Then next one thought, could we look at the second plane that will be the frontal plane? Frontal plane means left or right side. So for example, movement like lateral shuffle is also commonly happened. So that is a movement plane we're looking at here. So when check out all those ACL video analysis, study have been found. Most of the time, you are bending to the same side as your injured side. So that is associated with the greater ACL injury risk. And what else? If you're looking at where your foot placed, it's also outside of the body. You're not treat your leg as a stick, but you break it into a position. So then that is commonly happen as well. So then, by checking out this, we thought, all right, let's do another, some laboratory testing to look at this maneuver. Can we find consistent results here? So there are 2 studies I've done during my doctoral dissertation. So to look at the anticipated medial lateral left or right perturbation on those variables during double leg jump, double leg landing, as well as cutting, which is touched on those common ACL injury maneuvers. So the first study, if we're looking at here, so the task is literally just a double leg jump, double leg landing for the first one. We will start with first jump landing one. And then the perturbation weight is still like 10 pounds. And we have the motion capture system and force plates for data collection. So those are the same devices we used as the first study. They're still in my lab. If you ever running, interested in this, so we could play with that. So this is the original setup. We have two devices built, and then they set it up left and right side. So that the ideas is really like a catapult. So you're having a 10-pound slime ball sitting here. You release the trigger, and you allow the ball jump out of the device and contact with the subject at a certain location you want by adjusting where you're placing it. So then to set it up, what we're doing, we first have subjects doing a jump height measurement, because the goal is really about helping them to get their, have the ball contact with them at their peak jump height. And then we measured their upper arm as well as the hip region, and we asked them to stand on the force plate, and we set it up the horizontal distance based on preliminary testing. We also have two 1-meter circles drawing out to control the landing area of the ball after contact with the subject, so that we are kind of like maximize the perturbation impact. So overall, if we're looking at the conditions, we have the participants jump, and this is happening at the upper trunk, and from participants left, right, or nothing, participants didn't know if a perturbation gonna come or not, although they knew the possible location. And we did have like good quality helmet, and no one got hurt. We also got some like form, just sewing, make sure they feel okay. But yeah, so that is a condition. And at the lower trunk around the hip region, they did the same thing. All right, so check out the results. What has been found? So first, most obviously, when the perturbation happens or when the ball is pushing to you, although you are trying to land with both, you won't be able to do that. We see a significantly greater landing time difference. And such differences more significant when it at the upper trunk location. So here you could see is about like 38 milliseconds. So actually for ACL injury, lots of video analysis was found ACL injury commonly occur within the first 15 milliseconds. So that could be one thing. And the second, what else will you be able to tell? So we will look at the trunk lateral bending angle. It doesn't allow me to the next one. All right, here we are. So when the perturbation happened, we will be able to see that the greater trunk like lateral bending angle. So if we're looking at here, all right. So when the perturbation happen is greater, and what does the positive or negative number mean? So when the perturbation happened at the upper trunk, it showed greater compared to lower trunk, and then it showed opposite direction. So that means if I'm being pushed at my shoulder, of course I will bending towards the opposite side. However, if my shoulder is not moving, but my hip is being pushed to the opposite side, I'm actually bending to the other side. So that is what is like those positive and negative number means here. And in terms of the biomechanical variables, when the contralateral side is really means the contralateral side, opposite side of the landing leg relatively to the perturbation's direction. So when the perturbation happened, the contralateral leg has a limited knee flexion angle as well as greater knee in position. Those are all associated with greater ACL loading variables. And similarly, some take-home message, we do not trying to get you really into all those numbers. So when the perturbation happened about your trunk, and if you look at those red arrows showing up here, that is what the force plate is measuring. You can tell how big it is by just directly see the length of it. So then when the perturbation happened, the opposite direction, opposite leg has a greater injury risk compared to the ipsilateral side. And the upper trunk has a greater ACL injury risk compared to the lower trunk. And then similar finding we did with the cutting study. They did a double leg jump, single leg landing, and cutting to one directions. And we found the perturbation, of course, decreased the performance. They won't be able to cut as fast as possible. And then it also increased the ACL loading variables during landing. So then we did those single planes, sagittal and frontal. So we thought, what else? Could we look at multi-planes? That is a study have been done here. And then we looked at, all right, we combine the frontal sagittal and the frontal, frontal plane. And we have subjects doing a double leg jump, single leg landing. And the perturbation will come from the contralateral or ipsilateral side relatively to the landing leg, or nothing happening here. And we also found consistent results as a combination here. All right, so here this is an ongoing study. So we're actually having a data collection scheduled at 1. So then what we're doing here is not only about the trunk perturbation, but also challenging our subjects more. As you could tell, they're wearing a pair of those glasses, those strobe glasses. They will block your visions at a certain frequencies so that we will be able to see when the visual interruption is a case, when you're being more challenged, or when some components like opponents to stop your vision or affect you. How will you be able to handle the visual disruption as well as the trunk perturbation at the same time? So we will look at you also pre-landing phase and early landing phase. So that is a study currently going on as well. So overall, we did some study, and this is what I said to feel like early. Here will be a heartbreaking video for you. And the same injury, ACL injury, happened on the same day as Mahomes. Now you will be able to tell they're exactly the same maneuvers. You know, once you're starting and then you planted the foot, as you could tell, the left planting here, outside, right, and forward. This is a good review. What did we learn today? And then it still got hurt. So that's kind of what we are having here. All right, I think I'm about the time, and just want to say thank you, everyone. Thank you to all my grad students and undergraduate students. They have been very good at perturb now and release the triggers, and they did lots of studies on that. And also thank you for the support of them. They had a good experience at the Central States ACSM, and also just to, thank you for being here, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Yeah, please.
So do you recommend, what kind of recommendations coming from some of your work like this, how an athlete may run?
Oh, thank you. So from the trunk part, so what we see is you want to develop your trunk dynamic control. So by saying that is when you're being pushed or being pulled, you want to try your best to maintain a neutral position before you're landed. So let's say you're being pushed before landing, or maybe at a layup. So while landing, you're trying your best to come back to a neutral position. But that also associated with your trunk strength, trunk neuromuscular controls. That's kind of like ongoing studies we're currently working on, and also trying to see if there are more evidence touched on that, which I don't think so, but yeah.
It seems like most of these non-contact injuries are just due to the player not being tough enough.
What would you mean tough enough? They landed very tough. Yeah. And actually, sometimes when you tear your ACL, that could also be because your quadriceps, they are seeing abnormal contraction. So you think about deceleration is really your cordyceps like contributing to that. Another reason I thought I wanted to look at is a pre-landing phase for the strobe glass, like the ongoing one, is really like people are doing those in vivo studies. They found the peak ACL loading is happening short before the initial ground contact and short after initial ground contact. So then the before initial ground contact, which means you're in the air, you're really just using your cordyceps, and that is really sometimes loading your ACL. So I thought that could be interesting. Yep.
Are you currently looking at, or do you plan on looking at the influence of fatigue on any of these parameters?
We did not really had a study designed to look at fatigue, because most of the time people are saying ACL injury is an accurate injury, and they also had an epidemiology study to see that most ACL injury happen during early season rather than later season. So they think fatigue may not be a critical role in ACL injuries. But recently has a paper are talking about from materials wise, if you load the ACL, let's see, 1,000 times, it will be easier to break. So there is a chance it may also associate with fatigue, but not well established. I haven't done that yet. Yep.
You probably read the type of turf.
Yep.
Any thoughts on that, or have you looked at the turf ground?
Yeah, so they're saying the real grass, it would be better. Turf is less friction, and I think there are lots of study have been done in soccer, in Europe area. They looked at the ACL injury risk. Yeah, real grass is better than turf, and turf is, they also had different turfs. I don't remember exactly the name of it, but the idea is really the more slippery it is, and is kind of associated with a higher injury risk of it.
Can I add something?
Yeah, yeah.
So when we talk about artificial turf, it's important to understand there's a lot of different types
Yeah.
of artificial turf that use different materials and different infill. And there's newer products now that don't have infill. It's kind of like the older AstroTurf that's becoming more popular.
Yeah. With fill, like you said.
So
Yeah.
there's different layers. So the grass that you can see, but that actually gives a similar composition to grass. There's usually rubber and sand on the bottom that the cleats can dig into, and there's different densities of that. So just categorizing turf as artificial turf,
Yeah.
just kind of like field conditions. There's poor grass field conditions and well-maintained grass field
Yeah, I'd
conditions.
understood they've improved it, because long ago it used to really.
Yeah,
First-
we're in third generation of turf, but even across different manufacturers and systems.
So they're going back to AstroTurf in the 70s?
Well, there's some companies that are, because it's a lower cost product.
Okay.
So they're selling
Oh, I
this. It's a no infill product that's kind of eating into the traditional company.
So it's just a cost thing, it's not a safety thing?
So the NFL has certified fields now, because there's grass fields and turf fields across the NFL, and there's different manufacturers and different types. So they recently completed a certification process. So certain artificial turf fields are certified by the NFL, and no non-infill fields have been certified. So there likely is, I don't think the big studies have been done to actually look at injury risk, but I can tell you that within the NFL, there's different injury rates across different types, brands of artificial turf. Some are more similar to grass, and others have a higher injury risk than grass.
So the sticky, not sticky, but the more effectively you can plant, the higher your risk? Or is being able to, in other words, being able to slip a little bit?
Having some release, yeah.
Some gear.
Some release of the cleats, some of them are too sticky, yeah.
Yeah.
The cleats don't.
So what
Yeah.
about cleat length?
They do have studies to look at that, cleats and
They're also starting to look at cleated versus non-cleated injuries and the mechanism of those. So if you're indoor doing volleyball or basketball, the mechanism of injury
Yeah.
might be different than if you're on turf or grass.
specs.
One of the biomechanisms we decided out at Oregon is actually working with puma on a female athlete-specific cleat.
Yep.
That I'm looking at these exact parameters of the interaction of the cleat and the field surface.
You work with Puma at Oregon?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's kind of a shock.
Maybe Nike acknowledged their.
All right, if no questions, and yeah, next time if there is an injury event, you could test me. If you guess it right, I think we did learn something here. If you didn't, I will take it on me.
Hi everyone, I'm Yu. I'm a second-year PhD student under the guidance of Dr. Song. Over the last 2 years, I have done some research project about the post-ACLR assessment, and mainly focused on the single-leg backward hopping. And today I will talk about one research project. We wrapped it up last semester, and in this research project, we are trying to investigate the effects of non-jumping leg movement on hopping performance and the lower limb kinetics during single-leg hopping task. Okay, so ACL injury is one of the most prevalent sports injury, and after ACL injury, ACL reconstruction, the ACLR is a common surgical treatment, and the goal of ACLR is to restore knee function and prevent ACL re-injury risk. However, even after ACLR, the ACL re-injury risk is also pretty high. 1 in 5 athletes still sustain a recurrent injury. As such, we need more accurate and objective approaches to assess the rehabilitation process. In PT clinics, the physical therapists will usually apply several functional performance testing, such as the single-leg forward hopping, to evaluate the knee recovery status of their patient. Single-leg forward hopping is the most popular one because it's pretty simple, efficient. It also requires the minimum equipment. As we can tell from the figure there, the physical therapist will just apply a tape measure on the ground, and then they will ask their patient to jump as far as they can on one leg. They will do the single leg forward hop on the injured side and the uninjured side, and then they will record the hop performance. If the patient achieves similar hop performance between the injured and the uninjured side, then they will be clear to return to play. However, even achieve similar hop performance between legs, the ACL re-injury risk is also pretty high. This is because the single leg forward hopping showed limited sensitivity to knee-specific deficits. We can look at the figure there, and in this research project, and the researchers investigate the hip, knee, and ankle work contribution during single leg forward hop. And they found the relative contribution of the knee work to the total lower limb work was only 13%. As such, the single leg forward hop may not reflect the true knee function. They involve their hip and ankle more when do the single leg forward hop. And our previous study found that the single leg backward hopping just jump backward. You may involve your knee more. And our previous study found that when you jump backward, you will impose greater knee mechanical demands compared to forward hop. The backward hop will showed greater knee power and work. It also showed greater knee work contribution compared to the forward hop. And similar trend was also observed in the ACL patient. As such, the backward hopping may provide a more knee-specific assessment. It might be more sensitive to detect the knee-specific deficits. In addition to the knee-specific demands of the task, the variability in task execution may also compromise the knee-related evaluation derived from the performance testing. In particular, the movement constraint may change the hop performance, such as the movement constraint on the arm and the non-jumping leg. And during 2025, we did a research project, and we investigate the effect of arm movement on hop performance and the lower limb kinetics during single leg forward hop and backward hop. And we found, compared to this controlled arm condition, free swing, the arm will increase the hop performance, but it decreases the knee work. As such, the arm movement may affect the hopping performance in the way that reduces the knee specificity of distance-based assessment. However, the non-jumping leg is still an understudied factor, and we did the literature review, and we found the non-jumping leg does work. It will contribute to the hop performance through coordination and timing. In addition, in long jump, the non-jumping leg contribute around 15% of the vertical impulse. It will contribute to greater hop performance. And during vertical hop, when we apply stricter restriction on the non-jumping leg, it will decrease the jump height as well. Because the single leg forward and backward hop, they shared some similar characteristic with long jump and single leg forward hop. They all require horizontal and vertical propulsions. As such, we think the non-jumping leg may also influence the hop performance and the joint-specific demands. As such, the purpose of this study is to quantify the non-jumping leg movement on hop performance and the kinetics of the jumping leg during single leg forward and backward hop. And we will focus on the knee movement. Due to this task, will be assess the knee recovery status of the ACL patient. And to investigate this, three conditions of non-jumping leg were designed. They are free swing, self-control positioning, and external control movement. We will talk about these three conditions in details later. And we have two hypotheses of this study. And the first hypothesis is that when we free swing the non-jumping leg, it will increase the hop performance. However, there is no corresponding increase in knee involvement. And the second hypothesis is for the effects of the task. We think the backward hop will impose greater knee demands. And for this research project, we recruit 68 healthy controls. And for the external control condition I mentioned before, we use the 3D print technology to have this frame. And the goal of wearing this frame is we want our participant to keep their hip and knee angle at 90 while jumping. And we will attach this L frame to the participant non-jumping leg. And this is a protocol of this research. At first, they will do the warm-up, and we will do the practice session. The goal of the practice session is we want our participant to feel comfortable while jumping with the frame. And then we will place the markers on. For the biomechanical testing, the goal is to have 4 successful trials for each condition. And we will have 6 conditions. We have 2 tasks, the single leg forward and backward hop. And for the non-jumping leg movement condition, there are free swing, internal control, and external control. And here, let me see. Okay, and this is a free swing condition. For the free swing condition, we will ask the participant free to swing their non-jumping leg to help them jump as far as they can. And for the internal control condition, we will ask the participant hold the knee and hip angle at 90 while jumping. And for the external control condition, they will jump with this frame and no swing while jumping as well. And okay. And for this study, the independent variable we have, there are hopping directions forward and backward. For the non-jumping leg movement condition, there are free swing, internal control, and external control. For the dependent variable, we calculate the hop distance, the lower limb work during jumping, as well as the lower limb work contribution during jumping. And here is the result. We can look at the figure there, and the blue bar represents the free swing condition. The right bar represents the internal control condition, and the golden bar represents the external control condition. As we can tell, the free swing condition showed the greatest hop performance. During single leg forward and backward hop, it supports our hypothesis 1. The free swing condition will result in greater hop performance. And we can focus on this knee walk first. So for the walk, it can reflect the loading, how much effort do you put when you do the hop task. And as we can tell, compared to the internal control condition, the swing condition showed smaller knee walk. As such, it also supports our hypothesis 1. Although free swing condition will increase the hop performance, however, there is no corresponding increase in the knee walk. And it also supports our hypothesis 2. From this figure, we can tell the backward hopping showed greater knee walk compared to the forward hop. In addition, we can also see the difference between the internal and external control condition. So for the hip, knee, and the ankle walk, the internal control condition showed greater work compared to the external control condition. And this is a result for the hip, knee, and ankle walk contribution. And we will focus on the knee walk contribution first. As we can tell, the internal control condition also showed greater knee walk contribution compared to the free swing condition. It also supports our hypothesis 1. And the backward hopping also showed greater knee demands compared to the forward hop. It also supports our hypothesis 2. And then we will look at the difference between the internal and the external control condition. As well, we can tell there is no significant differences between these two conditions. And then we will summarize the result a little bit. As we can tell, the result supports our hypothesis 1. The free non-jumping leg swing will increase the hop performance. However, there is no corresponding increase in knee kinetics or relative involvement. As such, we think allowing non-jumping leg swing may reduce the knee specificity of hop performance. So in the clinical settings, when we let our patient do the single leg hop task, we can just ask them self-control their non-jumping leg, no swing while jumping. For the internal and external control condition comparison, we can see that the internal control condition will show greater lower limb kinetics variables. However, there is no significant differences in joint-specific work contribution. It suggests that the external control condition may reduce the ability to generate the power. However, the overall strategy is similar because there is no significant differences between the work contribution part. As such, we think the self-control positioning may be a practical way to restrict the non-jumping leg. And for the external constraint condition, it can serve as an low-intensity alternative. In addition, for the task effect, the backward hopping also showed greater knee engagement, so it might be a more sensitive task to assess the knee function. Okay, and that's it. Okay, any questions?
I have one. So you mentioned the re-injury risk is 1 in 5.
Yes.
So that's re-injuring the same ACL that was injured initially?
Yes, and after ACL reconstruction, it's also pretty common to observe injured on another side.
Oh, that was going to be my follow-up. So has there been work done to say if you injure one knee, is the likelihood that you'll injure the other one
Yes.
greater? Okay. Yeah, thank you. Just just curious. I've always heard that, but I've never heard like a research basis for that.
If I remember right, it sounds like they did not find significant differences for the same side or the other side, but
Okay.
both sides, overall there is a higher risk.
Okay.
I may have missed this. You had male and female participants.
Yes,
Did
yeah.
you explore sex-related differences
Oh.
among any of these variables?
And this is a work I'm currently working on, investigate the sex differences between the male and the female participant. And based on the current result, there was no significant differences between the sex.